Hey guys, so yeah, you may have noticed the nails, all in their green glory. I decided to theme them up before I went to see Wicked, and oh my god, I loved it so much. The stage show has always been a favourite of mine, and the film just, chef's kiss. Naturally, I had to come home and immediately start working on this project. So if the nails weren't already a clue, you're in for an Elpha surprise. Okay, yeah, I'm making Elphaba. So let's get into it. I'm not going to be doing the typical witch outfit because, you know, that's just cliche at this point. There were so many custom changes in the film and they were all absolutely so beautiful. But I picked out the Shiz uniform when she performs I'm Not That Girl. For that, I've got this lime green, obviously for her skin tone, the light blue for the shirt and the dark blue for the dress. I will of course add a list of everything that I used in the description box below. Actually, I should elaborate here. I first intended to do an homage to the Broadway poster, and that's why I chose the lime green. But when I took another look in my yarn stash for more greens, I found myself in a bit of a dilemma. One of them was just too dark, so I had to rule that one out. But next to the others, the lime green seemed too light now. I do have this middle green, but it's a discontinued colour, and I just don't have enough of it. So unfortunately, even though I think the middle green would be a better fit, I had to go with the muted green. The other green seemed too foliagey for my liking, so you can see me here holding the navy blue up to the greens just to see if the colour combo would work. Anyway, with the right colours settled, let's begin for real. I began by making some shoes for her off camera. I wanted to make her boots in a similar way to the pair I made in my earlier Blackpink video, but I had a different plan for the grommets this time. I decided to use some binding tape on the edge of the shoes to add some thickness. That way, I could then use my crocodile to insert the grommets. I first had to sew on the binding tape to each side of the shoe. After doing that, I went on to use the silver eyelets. Unfortunately, my plans then got a bit derailed. Although I'm still sure my approach was sound, I think I just messed up the execution. I suppose I should have expected that though, since every other time I've used the crocodile, these tiny eyelets, they've always ended up mangled. You see, the bigger eyelets come included with the crocodile, but the scale I'm working with needed something much smaller. Here they are side by side for comparison, and like I said, I think it's user error on my part. It might just be that the eyelets I have are simply too small for this crocodile, but the damage was done, so for expediency's sake, I glued the eyelets on instead and moved on to finish up the rest of the shoe. Next, I crocheted the tongue section of the shoe and then sewed it onto the front portion of the shoes. I then decided to use a spare foot to test fit the shoes now and lace up the shoes with some string just to see that it fits. I will cut the string down to size later on, but for now it's just to make sure that everything is looking okay. With that done, I repeated this a second time to get the second shoe completed as well. I also added a thin sheet of foam at the bottom of each shoe for stability and then hid the seam by gluing some yarn into the gap. I then left them to one side and moved on to the next step. Using the green yarn, I made her legs off camera to speed things up a bit. I then joined them together using the navy blue. Next, I crocheted up until I reached what seemed to be the waistline. and left the front loops available for adding the skirt. To make the skirt, I went back to the waist and crochet down and back towards the feet. It's usually better to finish off the skirt before the arms are installed, as they do tend to get in the way. It's not impossible, it's just really annoying. So to save myself the headache, I just cut my working yarn and finished the skirt in full now, before continuing to finish up the torso. With the skirt completed, I moved back to continue crocheting the rest of the torso and then install the arms. I crocheted the hands separately and added cuffs at the wrist area. I then added some armature wire wrapped in quilt batting and crocheted it into the main body. I also went back and surface crocheted around the colour seam to neaten it up a bit. Before I finished the head, I added a shirt collar by crocheting around the neck. At this point, I also added the straps for the dress and a little bow to the neck because I just think it looks cute and it adds a personal touch. The bow isn't movie accurate, but let's be honest here, we're not going for movie accurate, we're going for movie same-ish. As a new category for you. Anyway, I went on to finish up the head off camera, and I also inserted the eyes at that point. She's done! Oh, and I also added some ears while I was at it. It's remarkable because at this point I always think they look like potatoes. I don't know why. But anyway, it was at this point that things started to get a bit janked up. Massive delays and so forth, but hey, it was going well up until now and I think she looks great so far. At this point, I ran into my first project delay, as the black wire I had ordered for the glasses never showed up. In the end, I just decided to forge ahead using my armature wire. I used an old lip balm stick to shape the round parts of the glasses and keep them in shape while I manipulated the rest of the frames. In particular, I wanted to make sure to get the S-curve shape that goes from the bottom of her right eye to the top of her left eye. Once I had the shape fixed in place, I used some black nail polish to paint them black. I did consider a navy blue for the glasses, but at this point I was already over time. The whole project was already pushed back several weeks, and so part of me just wanted to get her done. The pinstripes on these Shiz uniforms are absolutely great to look at and are just fire. However, from an amigurumi perspective, they are a pain in the needless to say, this part also slowed things down more than I had expected and took an age to finish. I got a hold of the closest colour match in floss yarn that I had available in my stash, and I just started sewing. Luckily for me, if you look at the costumes closely, the stripes don't 100% match up. And that helped me massively. I mean, I'd like to say they don't align at all, but admittedly that's more wishful thinking at this point. But I'm just going to brush that under the carpet and never speak of it again. I finished the stripes and voila!
A little longer than a few minutes later.
I'm just going to pretend that didn't take me 5 hours over the course of several days to complete. But for you, it's over in moments. The last unplanned time sink for this project was, of course, the hair. I wanted to go all out, go big or go home with Elfie's hair, but I also didn't want to commit to making that permanent. So I made a wig cap using the green yarn. I then surface crocheted in a spiral around the cap with black to essentially create tracks. Then using an old diary, here you can literally use some cardboard, an old notebook, or any object that is roughly the same height that you're going to want your hair. I wrapped the black yarn around it multiple times and cut them to get my strands of hair. I then began installing each of the strands into the wig cap by inserting the crochet hook through a single crochet on the cap, pulling the cut strand through, and then tying it off with a lark's head knot. So, as if that wasn't going to take long enough, my past self decided to show her true colours and make my present self pay for her choices. I went ahead and unravelled each of these strands to get the wavy texture I wanted for her braids. This was a bad idea. I soon realised that following that up and braiding these strands would have been a level of self-torture I've not reached before, and that includes the past me that sat through Green Lantern. Anyway, no shade on Green Lantern, self-reflection wouldn't get this done.
One eternity later.
So I put on Schitt's Creek on Netflix, totally appropriate at this point, and got to unravelling. After most of the unravelling was complete, I went back in and inserted a few more strands just to fill in some gaps that I had missed. It was at this point in the project that I was looking at close-up stills from the film just to finalise the details and double check my work, and it turns out the S-shape curve of the glasses is black and the rest is silver. So, using some acetone, I removed the nail polish on the relevant parts and promptly went to scream into a pillow for 4 minutes. After I composed myself, I came back from my screaming session and added a gel polish top coat to seal and protect it from chipping and rubbing off, and then cured it with the UV lamp. One last detail left. I have these tiny pearl flatback cabochons, which will be the buttons. I used some fabric glue to glue them to the front of the shirt for the final touch. So anyway, while you watch me glue these buttons down, and before we get to the reveal, I'd just like to thank you all for watching, and of course if you'd like to see more, then please like, share, comment, and even consider subscribing. If you are feeling generous, then please also consider buying me a cup of coffee on Ko-fi. The link to my Ko-fi page will be included in the description box below. Any and all donations will be greatly appreciated. Also, don't forget to yeet that bell button to be notified whenever I upload a new video. Anyway, enjoy the beauty shots, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!